I distinctly remember when I was a kid, there was a TV show that was on. It was a miniseries, and it was on one of the 4 channels that were on in those days: ABC, NBC, CBS, VHS, UHF. It was called UHF, and there were like 4 channels that you could get. But this was a big deal. It was well publicized, and everybody, it seems like all of America watched this show. It was a mini-series on, I think, 5 nights or something like that. But it was a TV series called Roots. And it was Alex Haley taken out of his book called Roots. And it chronicled the journey of a young man named Kunta Kinte, who was in the Mandinka tribe in Gambia, Africa. He was raised to be a warrior. He going through all of his rites of passage and made a warrior, pronounced as a man in front of the tribe. And the story unfolds. It just kind of starts there, and it follows as one of the neighboring tribes, the warring tribes, sold his tribe into slavery. They were captured, caged, drugged to the beaches, put on ships, and taken to America to be sold. The series goes on for a couple generations of this family, and it was apparently Alex Haley's family, that the story showed this family as these mighty warriors, this warrior who was pronounced by his family, who was a Gambian warrior from the Mandinka tribe. He was mighty, he was brave, he was made to fight, he was incredible. He was enslaved, and it showed him as he fought and as he tried to escape, and he would never have his freedom beaten out of him. A couple generations later, it traces the family. One man had his foot cut off so he could never run away again. In a couple generations, the slaves were downtrodden. They were obviously impoverished. They had the warrior spirit in them broken, and they were an enslaved people. And I remember thinking, how horrible. How horrible. I was a little kid, a white kid, growing up in Ohio in a small town, and that all seemed to be so distant and far from me. And I remember thinking how awful that would have been, and how horrible. And as I think about our culture today, I don't want to take anything away from the horrors of slavery in the United States or in England or in any other part of the world where it currently exists or has existed. But I do want to make a parallel to what I feel is the number one threat facing men today. Facing men today. The number one thing that I believe faces men today. My phone rings frequently, or I get an email that says, "Rob, I need help." These are enslaved men who have in them mighty warrior spirit, who have put themselves in cages that they thought were innocent places, but where their passion, their purpose, their power, their perspective, all of those things that we talk about on this podcast are encaged and enslaved and beaten down and dumbed down and numbed down. The topic that we're going to jump into, that I've been waiting months to jump into, is the topic of pornography and unwanted sexual behavior. I want to welcome you to The Next Stage. It's a podcast dedicated just for men. And I want to invite you, if you're a man listening to this, if you're a single woman listening to this and you have a son, if you have a nephew, if you have a cousin, if you have any man in your life, I would love for you to grab this and share it. And this entire series that we're jumping into, it is, I think, why we started this podcast. We haven't been wandering through kind of aimless. We've been very intentional about the topics that we've been talking about. But I want to talk about this topic of porn and unwanted sexual behavior in our lives, in our cultures, and I want this to go global. Because I believe the things that we talk about in here are of utmost importance, probably the most important thing that we could ever talk about, because I believe it is the thing that enslaves men in our culture today. Does this exist among women? Oh, absolutely. In soaring numbers. Used to think porn was a guy thing. No. It is all over the place in women's culture as well. But we're going to talk specifically about men because that's what I specialize in. That's what I capitalize on. And that's the journey I want to help you take in developing as you summit life's climb. So welcome to The Next Stage. It's a podcast dedicated just for you. We're jumping into a series called Freedom from Porn. So let's talk about you, who you are, what you aspire to be. We've identified, and we talk about them a lot on this podcast, really framing your life around 4 quadrants of passion, purpose, power, and perspective. Passion, in you lives a great capacity to love, to experience friendship, to experience joy. There's a great driver in you called purpose. It's where there is the metaphor of a king that lives in you, that wants to grow and expand what he does, wants to create places where other people thrive, where you create safe spaces and there's an expansiveness in you that we talk about around the metaphor of king, but it comes out of your purpose. There's also another P called power. It's where there is a warrior in you who has warrior strength. And you may not look like Hercules or The Rock or somebody like that. You may be small in stature. You may be big in stature. It really has nothing to do with stature. It's really a characteristic of who you are. It's something that wants to protect and to provide. It wants to achieve at home, at work, in your community. It's who you are. And then there's another P, passion, purpose, power. The final one is perspective. It's that you have a strong sage part of you that has a worldview and that has the ability to view the world and to assess it and to make judgments about it in order to problem solve and take action. And that is who you are. I believe, and you may not believe this, I believe this, that you were created that way. You did not evolve that way. You were designed that way by God to be a mighty king, to be a sage, to be a warrior, to be a lover in your world. The problem is, men, that there is an element in your environment around you that hooks something in you. It hooks the power, purpose, passion, perspective, all those things, and leads it into slavery. And the sinister thing about it is that it is not going after something that is inherently evil. In fact, it's just the opposite. The things that it goes after are inherently, I believe, good. And it comes out of my theology. In fact, it comes out of the theology of Genesis. Your sex drive is not evil. The hormones that surge through your body, if you're a middle school kid and you're like, oh my gosh, what in the world is happening to me? That is not evil. The biological changes of developing hair on your body or experiencing your first erection or whatever the things are, those are not evil. Those are good. They're put there for good. God designed all of those things, including sexual intimacy. He designed all of it, and he said in the Genesis account of creation that it was very good. There's nothing wrong with it. But the sinister part of pornography, as we talk about it, is that it takes hold of those things that are good and drags it off. It pollutes it. It lies to it, speaks lies into it. It abuses it. It drags it off and enslaves the thing that was created, that was actually created in the image of God. It's like the story Pinocchio. Remember Pinocchio? I want to be a real boy. And that sounds pretty good, actually. Pinocchio had a great relationship with the wood carver Geppetto. Geppetto didn't have any kids, so apparently Geppetto grabs a block of wood and starts to make Pinocchio, right? He's a marionette doll, and perhaps you've seen the Disney cartoon. I love it. Loved it when I was a kid, love it now. But Pinocchio was fun-loving, he was playing, he was a great kid, and he had a great relationship with Geppetto, the father figure of the cartoon. One day, Pinocchio has to go to school, and he goes to school, and his desire was to be a real boy, right? He wanted to be a real boy. He was a marionette doll, and he knew it, but he was alive, and somehow that all worked out in the cartoon land. But he wanted to be a real boy, and he runs into some guys that take him to a place called Pleasure Island. Remember Pleasure Island? It was awesome. They could do anything they wanted. They could have fun. Fun's a good thing, right? It was adventurous. Adventure's a good thing, right? It was a place where they could have all kinds of freedom. Freedom's a good thing, right? But when they got there, they found out that the promises that were made to them on the front end were not met on the back end. And eventually, they found themselves smoking cigars and drinking and playing poker and doing all this kind of stuff. And eventually, party's over, and the guy that lured them into Pleasure Island, they began to turn into donkeys, into jackasses. They were thrown into cages and shipped off to be used for work, and they were enslaved as a result. Millions of men around the world, tens of millions of men, hundreds of millions of men around the world are enslaved to the thing that we're talking about in pornography and other unwanted sexual destructive behaviors. They're lured in by something good in them, by their sex drive, by their brain chemistry, which is not evil, by the hormones that are released in their brain when they see stimulus, images of stimuli, and yet they're lured in and drug off and enslaved and eventually beaten down and numbed down. And they cannot be the great warriors that they were made to be because they've given themselves over to a slavery by their decision-making. Let's take a look at some of the stats. A lot of the statistics that we're going to use in this series come out of a book that I absolutely love. We're going to lean into a lot of really well-written, well-thought-out education and research here. One book that I love is a book called Unwanted by Jay Stringer. I think the work that this guy has done has been unbelievable. I've got to meet this guy. Here's what he says. This is just right out of his introduction to the book. Here's some statistics. He cites all of his sources, did a study on his own and used it in this book as well. But 64% of 13 to 24-year-olds watch pornography at least once a week. That is actually lower than I thought it was going to be. 62% of men and women from early teens to young adults will have at least one sexting message, and 41% of them will have sent one. 62% teenagers to young adults. 41% will have participated. The average initial involvement in prostitution, check this out, for girls is estimated to be 14 to 18 years old. Porn nearly doubles the probability of divorce. The connection between porn and sexual abuse of children is staggering. It's a gateway drug for all kinds of other abuses that you would look at and be like, oh my gosh, how does somebody get there? Everything from child abuse to child porn to rape to bestiality to any other kind of sexual deviancy, the gateway drug to it for the brain, for the heart, for the mind, for the soul is through pornography. Connection between porn and sexual abuse of young children is unbelievable. 35% of internet downloads are porn related. I believe that one. The first day we got wired up for the internet. That sound? Those of you millennials, Gen Zs, you have no idea what I'm talking about. It was dial-up. I think the first thing I looked at was ESPN. Oh my gosh, you can tell like real-time scores. Second thing, it was porn. It's just where my mind went, and oh my goodness. Couldn't believe the things that were available. Like, wow. Until I found out that wasn't such a secret. And my wife and I had some very serious conversations about it. And her image of who I was as a man was hugely affected. And what it did to her was hugely affected as well. 35% of downloads. Unbelievable. Porn sites have more traffic than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. It is a $100 billion industry worldwide, and the U.S. owns a very, very healthy percent of that. 77% of adults come from very rigid families as well who struggle with pornography. Rules don't make all the difference. If you're a dad and you're like, we're just going to clamp down, we're going to give all kinds of rules for this. 77% of those who struggle with sexual addiction come from those kind of families that just rule with a tight rein. Check this out. Ignoring it is even worse. 87% of those struggling with sexual addictions report coming from disengaged families. So lots of rules don't work. Disengaged, unattached families, that doesn't work either. And on and on and on and on. Man, pornography has been around since cavemen started carving on cave walls with like charcoal sticks. You can see them on the caves. I mean, it's been around in every ancient culture all over the place. When film was developed in the United States in the 1920s, they called them stag films. Early porn films that were developed in the early 1900s. Shoot, there was a drive-in theater in Fairborn, Ohio. I grew up near Dayton. We had some friends that lived in Fairborn. We had to drive to go see them. We drive frequently in the evening. There were 3 screens. This place was right by the highway. And I remember driving by, and that was like, oh my gosh. My mom and dad are like, nope, look, kids, the other way. I'm like, what? 3 screens right beside the highway that were showing rated X films and had it plastered on the highway. Hey, with a big arrow, neon sign, come check this out. It has been around for a long time. But listen to this. Never before, ever before in human history has an 11-year-old been able to Google a gang rape. Never before in human history has a 7 or 8-year-old been able to get online and start typing in something and put a word that was spelled wrong and have what is called typo squatters. When you make a typo, they squat on the typo, they capture it, and lead them to their pornography site. Never before has our culture been so engrossed and overwhelmed by a tsunami of pornography the way that it is. And it leads right into the 3 A's of addiction. Anonymity, or at least the gloss of anonymity. We know now that nothing's anonymous, but you think you have anonymity. Affordability, it's cheap. It's free. And availability, it is right there on your phone. And any 8-year-old, 4-year-old, however old you want to be, can get it for free on their phone. Man, porn is not a victimless crime. We're going to get into that in this series as well. There's no way that you can sit back and go, oh, man, it's just innocent. It's just me, whacking off to this stuff, and it's just me and whatever this is on this page. I subscribe. They all, they're making tons of money on this. It's not. It's linked to violence against women, violence against children, and in some cases leads to some of the most hideous crimes you can imagine against human beings and children and even animals. Yep. Bestiality is a part of this whole thing. And I'm so thankful for movies like The Sound of Freedom. I'm so thankful for what Tim Tebow is doing with his organization. Ashton Kutcher is raising these issues to Congress, saying we've got to stop the sex trade of children around the world. And all of it goes back to this gateway drug called pornography. Men, porn starts off really innocent. Starts off really innocent. I remember, and I'd love for you to think back with me. Think back, when was your first experience seeing a pornographic image? First experience, just think about it. I know exactly when mine was. I was at my friend's house. There were three of us. Three boys, we just grew up together. We were at his house, and he lived on a farm, and we actually looked in the trash, and I don't know, he found this and showed this to us. But it was a magazine. It was I don't know what it was, Hustler or something. And I was like in the second grade. The surge of energy and unbelievable stimuli that went through my brain was something I had never felt before. That energy surged very quickly south, and I was like, oh, God, what is going on? It suddenly occurred to us that this was weird that the three of us were taking a look at this magazine together. It also was very interesting that magazine came from his sister. I never even thought about the possibility of homosexuality before, but apparently that was involved in the situation. But it was his sister's. He showed it to us, and we were like, this is weird, man. All right, back to baseball. And we went and played baseball together. But that was my very first experience. It started off very innocent of boys playing and just having fun together. And this kid who got exposed to it from his sister showed it to us. The problem, men, with that, and you think about your very first experience with pornography, is that, yeah, it's out there in our world. You're going to see it at some time. But the problem is what it does to you. The problem is that it so hooks the dopamine and serotonin in your brain and sends out naturally occurring pleasure sensors, and it loops in neural pathways. And we're going to get into that in this series as well. There is a locked-in memory of what goes on. Adding to it mirroring, it's called mirroring, of images that you see on a screen and dialing that in with masturbation. It bonds you to the pleasure giver, to the pleasure giver of the image. It actually destroys and causes an addictive pattern in your life, and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of men around the world are affected. It steals, it kills, and it destroys. It steals, it kills, and it destroys. Think about the quadrants of your life. Your passion, your God-given driver to sexually unite with a woman and bond with her is turned into bonding with any number of things, with thousands of images, perhaps hundreds of people. If you're into hookup culture and you physicalize this, you're into hundreds of people, and there's a term of what is your body count? Your body count. Not only your passion, but your purpose. Lowering the nobility of what you were made to be to a base level of being a consumer or buying sex, or better yet, being targeted by those who are picking your pocket every day and getting hugely rich off of you and what a sucker you've become. Instead of nobility, you very simply become you're the product. Let's put it that way. Your power, stealing nobility and strength, instead of protecting and providing, going down this rabbit hole has made men victimizers and predators. No, it's not just porn. It's not just victimless. No, my friends, it isn't. The problem is that you don't just view women. You are being sold into slavery. You're selling yourself into a system that wants to devour you. Lastly, your perspective. Your perspective, it turns our mind into viewing women as just objects, disposable, to be used or misused or abused. Back to Pinocchio in Pleasure Island. He was lured in. He was turned into a jackass. He was thrown in a cage. He was shipped off, and he was enslaved. He was actually in the ocean, in the belly of a whale. It couldn't get any worse for Pinocchio. And how many of us find ourselves in that situation? Men, do you see what's at stake here? Let me be very clear. All of you is at stake here. If you're a young boy, listen to this and you're like, man, this sounds pretty bad. It is. All of you is at stake here. Maybe you have tried like white knuckling this issue, just kind of going, okay, I'm gonna beat it. I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna go tackle this problem and go for it. And you want to develop enough willpower. The problem is, as we look at in this series, your neural pathways are formed and you are formed into addiction. And thousands of young boys are developing it so early on before their brains even have the ability to distinguish really right from wrong because they're nurtured on it. They're brought up on it. I'll bet many of those boys are in your house. Maybe some of those boys are listening to this right now. Some men just stop giving up and adopt it as their identity. One man I knew, for years, he just referred to it as my addiction. My addiction. I finally asked him one day, I was like, have you stopped fighting? Have you just given in to this? He looked at me and said, yeah, it's my addiction. He treated it like it was a pet. It was just part of his identity because he was so far down this path. My heart broke for him as we talked about it. Perhaps you are in hookup culture and you're like, hey, listen, it's my body count. It's what I do. I know men who have just graduated from college and their body count of women they've slept with and hooked up with is in the hundreds. It's just part of the culture, right? Let me show you really what sex is for, okay? Duct tape. There's always a good duct tape example. If you're listening to this, you can just kind of hear that, hopefully. If you're watching on YouTube, sticking it to my shirt. Duct tape is intended to stick, right? Your sexuality is intended to stick. It's intended to be there. A man and a woman becoming one and being together for a lifetime. That was the design. But if you take it on, take it off, put my name tag on, pull it back off, take it on, take it off. Maybe it sticks to itself. I got to fix it again. Got to put it on, take it off. If I am continually bonding this to other people, maybe I put it over here, maybe I stick it on the microphone, maybe I put it over here. Eventually, guess what? It's going to lose its ability to really bond the way that it was created to, right? Your sexuality is like duct tape. It's created to bond and form you to another human being created in God's image for a lifetime. and to model for the world what power and passion and purpose and perspective around this issue is. Men, if you think you've got pornography under control, you don't. You don't have it. It has you. So what's the plan? What do we do? Where do we go other than just throwing this out there and being like, oh, dude, I've heard this before. I'm going to get beat up. I know. No, you're not. But you also don't just ignore it. You don't just throw it aside. You don't just be like, oh, well, whatever, dude. That guy's just kind of off on some rant. You get help. You get help the way you do when you're with a physical trainer. You're like, you know what? I want to grow in strength. I want to grow in my agility. I want to improve my golf swing or whatever it is that you do. You get a coach beside you and you get improvement because you can't do that for yourself. You do that the way you do at work. You get help for all kinds of things at work. You may get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a PhD. You may go to an executive coach or a seminar or just work your way up the ladder at work. But when it comes to porn, you're like, nah, I got this. Physical trainer? Yeah, I need one of those. Vitamins? Yep, absolutely. Need to eat healthy? Yep. Go to the doctor? Yep, I need help there. Help at work? Absolutely. Porn? Nah, I got this. No problem here. What you really are, you're like Monty Python, the Holy Grail, when the guy gets his arm cut off, both of his legs cut off, and he's still trying to fight the other night. And he's like, dude, you have no legs. The guy sitting on the ground with no legs, he's like, come on, man, it's a mere flesh wound. I've seen worse. Those of you Monty Python, Holy Grail guys. A lot of us approach our lives that way instead of admitting that we've got an issue and we need help. We're sitting there with both legs lopped off, perhaps an arm lopped off. And like, nah, not a problem. A mere flesh wound. I've seen worse. Men, it's time to do something about it. You don't have this problem. This problem has you. And my hunch is that it's been killing you. It's been killing you. Slowly. Just like the end of Pinocchio, when Pinocchio finds himself swallowed by the whale, crying out for help. I know men who have been in jail, who aren't allowed to see their children, who have wrecked marriages, who have wrecked careers, who have wrecked generations because of the places that this issue has taken them. That has happened in our immediate family. Generations have been affected. It's that serious. So here's the plan. This podcast is built for you, and we've been leading up to this. I'm so excited to jump into this, not because it's some titillating experience or because I love talking about edgy stuff or anything like that, but because everything in you is at risk in this topic. Everything that we talk about, your purpose, your passion, your power, your perspective, all of those things are at risk. We're going to talk about how your story in your life ties into this, how neural pathways are tied into this, how healing can happen in your life as a result of this. This is not going to be one of those series that beats you over the head and that drags you in. And it's not going to be one that yells at you and says, you suck, get your act together, man. Just work harder, try harder. This is not one of those, the beatings will continue until morality improves type of a thing. Not at all. It's not going to shame you either. Perhaps you grew up in a culture like that where shame was a big part of your life. Don't you see how this hurts you? Don't you see how shameful this is? Say you're sorry. Don't you feel bad? Did you see how this affects you? We're not going to shame you. But what we are going to call you to is to take responsibility and to lean in, to grab on, and perhaps for the first time in your life, say, I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to be the man I was created to be by getting free from this slavery that I'm in. Picture a African savanna, okay? The huge plain in Africa. Picture a mighty lion walking across the savanna. The tall grass is there. He's walking along. He's got the full mane, I think it's called for a lion. Just go with it, okay? He's got the Mufasa kind of look from a Lion King. He's walking along, and all of a sudden he smells fresh meat. Something in his brain, his lion brain is so primal. It's like, you know what? Fresh meat. We're going to go eat. So he hunkers down and starts to creep towards. He sees it over there. Can smell it. It's driving him crazy, but he's being careful. He's walking along very cautiously, and he gets right up to it, and all of a sudden, bam! He crashes through the trapping pit. He's caught. He's down in the pit, but, like he doesn't care really. He's eating the meat that was set out there. So he's devouring it, but he's down in this pit. And this mighty lion is down in this hole. The hunter set a trap for him. He laid out the thing that was right there. He knew it would work because lions love meat. And the lion is trapped in the pit. You see, the hunter outsmarted the lion. And now he's trapped. Perhaps you are too. Perhaps you are too. You smelled porn. Oh my gosh, it stimulated your mind in a way that was just like, it drove it crazy. It was like a bone-in ribeye to your brain. It was so appetizing, but it took you and it led you down a trap. Here's what we're going to do in this series. We are not going to say, you idiot. You should have known where this was going to lead. Dude, you should have known that meat sitting out like that, it wasn't just for free. Of course there was something behind it. Of course you were caught in the algorithm. Of course it's going to come after you on all of your social media stuff. We're not going to say that. We're also not going to shame you. We're also not going to throw you a book that says, hey, here are 125 ways to get out of porn. Not going to do that at all. Chuck you a book, make you feel bad, tell you to willpower yourself up. Not at all. Instead, we're going to throw a rope in the pit. We're going to tie it off to something that is far more strong than you. And if you'll let me on this path, I'm going to jump down in the hole with you. I'm going to jump down in the hole. Maybe help lead you to a place where you can bind up that wound that's there. Help you get out of the trap. Help lead you back up and help get you free. But here's the thing. You've got to let go of your excuses. You've got to let go. No more excuses. No more my addiction. No more it's everywhere. And so I'm just going to, just kind of go with it. No more just developing it a part of your identity. Just being like, well, maybe the pit's not so bad. Maybe I like it down here. Maybe I was made for the pit. It's really too wild up there anyway. I'm just going to sit down here. No. Man, that's what this series is about, is helping you get free and help you become the mighty man once again that you were created to be. The majestic lion who lives with power and passion and purpose and perspective. See, thinking we have had an avenue of freedom, millions and millions of men have found themselves enslaved in pornography. Odds are you're one of them. Let's get you free. Very simply, the call to action is this. I want you to lean in. I want you to pass this on. I want you to send a like to this channel, whether it's Apple or Spotify or YouTube, however you're accessing this. Lean into this. Share this. Send this to other men in your world. Listen to it and then get together and talk about it. If you're a grown man, maybe you're 50, 60, 70, maybe 80, and this has just been your life for a long, long, long time, jump in. It can help. If you're a middle-aged man and you're in the pressure cooker of life and porn is just something you take for a, respite from all that's going on, jump in. Let's go. If you're a young man and you find yourself tied up and twisted and down in a pit that you just think is part of growing up, jump in. Jump in. Let us help you. Call to action, men, is very simple. Listen, spread the word, give us a like, send me an email. The next stage at Sherpa5280.com. Perhaps say in there, I need help. We will get you connected to a coaching group that is set up exactly for this purpose to help you get free. Men, thanks for joining us. Thank you for jumping into this Freedom from Porn series. I'm so excited about where it's heading. I know that it is going to help men in this world. The gold nugget for the day that I want to share with you comes out of the words of Jesus Christ. In John 10:10, he says that the thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. The thief comes to steal and kill and to destroy. Sound familiar? That's what we've been talking about. Stealing, killing, and destroying your life. But he said, I've come that you might have life and that you might have it to the fullest. It is my prayer for you that you find life to the fullest applied to this area of your life. There is hope. There is real life. That's what we're going to talk about on this series. Men, thank you for being part of the next stage. I'm really excited about where this goes. I want you to be a part of this series. Like it, share it, pass it on, but join us for the next step. We're going to take a look at the mental part of what happens around pornography, how your brain is wired, what is going on in your neurochemistry, what is happening in your mind, and how it becomes an addictive trap. There's a whole ton of research that we're going to take a look at, but join us for the next part of Freedom from Porn as we take a look at the mental trap of pornography. We'll see you on our next episode.